True Ghost Story by Mr. W.G. Shrubsole. As published in the North Wales Chronicle, December the 26th, 1885. Read by Bethina. Ghost stories of today are of a very thrilling and blood-curdling nature. A craving for the horrible seems to be rapidly gaining ground amongst the readers of light literature. Consequently, we are flooded with stories which either contain throughout an element of the supernatural or are entirely dependent for their interest in that of the morbid kind, aroused by what promises to turn out supernatural, but which is ultimately shown to be merely an extraordinary combination of natural causes. I fear the following incident will lack the interest these highly spiced narratives usually possess, because the experience recounted is genuine. But if truth in this case is not stranger than fiction, it will at any rate embody an inexplicable circumstance, such as the Psychical Society might, perhaps, find within the scope of their inquiries to discuss and possibly explain. I had been staying during the autumn of 1880 at a cottage situated on the shores of one of the most romantic lakes in Wales. I grew so charmed with the place that I prolonged my stay until the beginning of December and was amply rewarded by the wild beauty of effect which the scenery around ever presented. It was towards the close of my visit that, one moonlight night, I became the observer of what to me at the time seemed a strange but by no means supernatural manifestation. It was only by the light of what I afterwards heard that my experience assumed the complexion of the supernatural, and as at the time I was unexcited in mind and not in expectation of any manifestation from another world, I am plunged in difficulties whenever I attempt to account for it by natural causes. Had my mind been in a state of highly wrought tension, I could easily account for the vision by relegating it to that class of sensory illusions to which we well know mankind is susceptible, and of which I myself have had, on more than one occasion, very striking examples. Well then, one evening after supper, the close of a very uneventful day, I took a walk as far as the end of the lane and back. This was a very ordinary thing for me to do, and on the occasion in question I lit my pipe, and with a stout stick in my hand wended my way along the side of the lake, my only companion being a large dog belonging to the house. It was blowing up for a wild night, and now and again a gust swept down from the hollows of the hills with a violence that made me pause in my walk to steady myself and caused the surface of the lake to be whipped into temporary commotion. The moon shone fitfully through the driving clouds, and ever and again there came a soughing from the towering crags around, strangely wild and human, as if the spirit of the wind were mourning amongst them. At last I reached the end of the lake, and giving a long look behind at the dark, dreary moorland, turned to retrace my steps towards the cottage. For some time I made rapid progress homeward, noting the wonderful way in which the patches of moonlight chased each other up the side of a steep mountain on the opposite side of the lake, until I was nearly halfway back to the cottage. At this spot the road formerly went round a point of land jutting into the lake, covered with huge masses of rock piled high one above the other. When I reached this place, the moon became densely overcast with clouds, and it suddenly grew so dark that I could scarcely see the wall on each side of the road. The dog was some few yards in advance, and I called him, intending to stop for a minute in order to fill and light my pipe, hoping too that the clouds would soon break again. But the dog, instead of returning to my call, gave a short howl, which a few moments later I heard him repeat at a greater distance. He was evidently making for home as fast as possible, and I concluded that he must have trodden on something and hurt or cut his foot. Leaning against the wall, I struck a match, and shielding it with my body and hands from the wind, succeeded in lighting my pipe. And then again the moon began to break through the clouds, and I paused for a few seconds to watch the light stealing across the water. Suddenly, below me, at a few yards' distance, I saw the figure of an old man, his hair flying in the wind as he stooped forward to lean upon the handle of a spade or mattock. I was startled, for the old fellow came so suddenly into view that it seemed as if he must have dropped there from the clouds. I hailed him with a shout of, "A wild night this!" He gave no reply, but slowly turned his face up towards mine. The moon gleamed out brightly for an instant, and I saw a pair of hollow, sunken eyes, set in a face so full of a kind of weary despair, of a hungry disappointment, that I was shocked, and for a moment I had a slight feeling that there was something uncanny in the appearance of this old man at such a time. What could he be doing there? But I had no time to lose, it was getting late, so with a "good night" shouted in the local vernacular, I turned towards home once more. A few paces further on I looked back, but the old fellow was gone, had probably moved into the shadow of or behind some of the rocks. Putting my best foot foremost, I soon reached the cottage and found the kitchen tenanted by 3 or 4 people from neighbouring farms. "Dear me, Mr. Blank," said the good woman, "we have been quite anxious about you, sir, since Toss came in without you. Something seemed to have frightened him." "Oh, I am all right," I replied with a laugh. "By the by, can you tell me who the old fellow is I saw along the shore of the lake with a spade?" I shall not forget the effect of my simple query. Every eye turned on me with a ghastly stare. The men turned pale, and the women sank into a chair. One of the men turned to another, and in accents that seemed dry and forced said, "He has seen the digger of Fotty." Then their tongues were loosened, and a babble of Welsh arose. In vain I tried to understand what they were saying. I could only catch a word here and there, but they soon departed after many pitying glances at me and much ominous shaking of heads. Then I learnt the cause of this commotion. I had seen a ghost. The figure of the old man was that of one who had died several years back. During his lifetime he had been remarkable for the penury of his habits, and was said to have on more than one occasion taken the most relentless advantage of people in monetary difficulties. His greedy and miserly habits became a monomania, and this at last assumed the form of a hallucination that there was a vast treasure buried at Fotty, the place where I saw him. At all hours the old miser might be seen there digging in different places, in spite of the wind and weather, and he would often be heard muttering colloquies with someone he seemed to imagine was at his elbow. So it soon got reported that he was in league with the fiend, and he was avoided and detested by the neighbours more than ever in consequence. At last, one stormy day, a fisherman found the old man's dead body at Fotty, with his spade still grasped in his hand. The discoverer ran in alarm to the nearest farmhouse to inform the people of the miser's death, and a party of men soon made their way to the spot where the fisherman had left the body. But it was gone, spade and all, and never a trace of it was seen again. Some time after, what was stated to be the handle of the old man's spade was found in an almost inaccessible hollow of the neighbouring mountains, so it became accepted as gospel truth that the fiend had carried away the miser's body over the mountains and dropped the spade in transit. After this, a farmer returning home late one night was frightened almost to death by seeing what he took to be the spirit of the miser, spade in hand at work on his favourite spot. The story got abroad. Again and again it was verified. The ghost of the old miser from time to time appeared to several and seemed to be, as a rule, the portent of the direst calamity to each individual who saw it. This was the story as I received it, and its truth was corroborated by many people living in the locality. Had it been told to me before I saw the figure by the lake, I should have simply thought the apparition the figment of my imagination, but at the time I saw the old man I knew nothing of him or his history, so I cannot account for the vision by any process of reasoning, and I am driven to the conclusion that, as Shakespeare says, there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in our philosophy. That's the end of the story, but don't go yet, because there is an interesting real-life twist to this tale. The author of this reputedly true ghost story, W.G. Shrubsole, was born in Maidstone in 1856. He was educated at Maidstone School and articled to the architect Hubert Benstead. His draftsmanship learned here led to a career in architecture with various other architects, and also to a hobby in landscape art painting, much of which was done in North Wales. He was talented, and some of his paintings were exhibited at the Royal Academy. He married in 1885 and was tipped to become a professional painter. He died on the 11th of December 1889, aged only 33. Almost 4 years to the day after his true ghost story was published in the North Wales Chronicle. One is reminded of the penultimate paragraph of his little narrative. The ghost of the old miser from time to time appeared to several, and seemed to be, as a rule, the portent of the direst calamity to each individual who saw it. Thank you very much for listening to this story, and I hope you enjoyed it. If so, please remember to click the like button, and if you'd like to support the channel, there's a join button for membership, or you can subscribe and click the little bell, and then you'll find out when I upload more creepy stories. I'd like to thank new channel member Inisipis TV, who enjoys a good ghost story.